Hello again and welcome back. My name's Annie and this is my creative detour. I hope you've all had a great week and enjoyed playing with some of your projects. And some of you are probably working on Mass Make March, which is what I'm doing this month. And most of my videos this month will be mass makes. We'll see how we go. I might have a few dotted in there that are not mass makes, but most of them are going to be mass makes because I love doing mass makes and it's a good opportunity to fill up our supplies. I'd like to say hello and welcome to my new subscribers. Thank you so much for stopping by and for subscribing and joining the channel. And hi to all my regulars. Thank you so much for always watching and for leaving such encouraging comments and some helpful hints and tips too. I really appreciate those as well. So what are we doing today? Well, as I said, it is Mass Make March, and I've completely run out of my pre-made tags out of book pages. So I thought tonight that I would do a bit of a mass make and make some tags out of all my different book pages and show you how I make them and build up my supply. And I usually make two different sizes, so we'll go through those sizes and I'll show you the way that I put them together. Some of them I do with pockets on the back and some I don't. But before we start mass making our tag bases, I'll just let you know that I have decorated 3 to show you at the end of the video. If you want to stick around for that, I'll show you how I've decorated them and talk through my techniques of how I build up different layers on them. Okay, let's get set up and get started. Okay, so you can see here that I have some heavy gauge paper. It's not cardstock, but you could use lightweight cardstock if you wanted to. But I have a lot of leftover visual diaries from when I used to teach architectural studies. So I'm working through my stash of visual diary paper. But you can use whatever you like. I wouldn't use a thick cardstock because I'm actually going to wrap the book page around it just to give it a bit of extra weight, but I don't want it to be too thick. Okay, let me tell you the measurements that I've got. The first one I've cut, it is 3 inches wide, which is 7.6 centimeters, and the length of it is 6 inches, which is 15.3 centimeters. The next one is 3.5 inches, which is 8.8 centimeters, and the length of that is 7 inches, which is 17.7 centimeters. So you can see that I've also pulled out some book pages. Now, when I'm mass making these, I pull out a range of different books. This one here is from the book, and it's got A Midsummer's Night Dream in it, and it's got the script of the play. And this one here is a illustrated dictionary. It doesn't have very many images on this one. It does have a little sketch of a squash rackets court, but you can see that they're different sizes and different heights, and I'll show you how I fold them. Now, I use a range of different things, but I tend to always pick something that is off-white as the base. It's not too aged, but it's not stark white, and that's what I tend to aim for. I'll show you why later on I do that. Now, the piece of paper, the only thing that I cut the size of it for is the height. So this one here is 6 inches high to match this one, and the width doesn't matter. So I don't cut the width down. This one you can see here, it is much wider, and what I do is I just tear it as I'm building it. I don't cut the pages down precisely until I'm putting it together. So let's put this smaller one together first, and I want a portion of this text to be centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold that down the line, not necessarily in half, but just so that the whole of the line, center line, is going to be on one of the sides. and fold it square. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this in, and I'm going to use glue stick. This is our smaller one, the 3" by 6" one. And I'm just going to make sure that I've got it the right way around. And I'm going to just glue that in up to but not over my fold line. So I like using glue stick because it gives me a little bit of time to wiggle it about. Okay, so if it is a little bit long, it doesn't matter, we can cut it down, but we don't want it to go over. So just fold it over and see that it closes okay, and it does. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to have, this is our front. I'm going to fold this over and put some glue on that. So you can see that I'm basically enclosing the piece of cartridge paper. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a nice piece of washi on this, because you're going to be able to see some of it. Okay, now I'm also going to make sure that I only put neutral colours on it. So for this project, doing the mass make, I keep everything neutral. So I don't do any colours when I'm building these. I just use black, white or cream, either one of those, and then varying shades of neutrals. So you can see here that it's pretty much a neutral of bugs. There we go. And then the next thing I do is I fold this back on itself to see where it's going to come to, because I want to create a pocket. And it's about, I want it about there. So you can see there's no measuring, it's just folding. And then I fold that back on itself. And I put some glue on this side. And the reason I fold it back is because I want that pocket to be supported, the edge of it to be fairly substantial. There we go, that's a nice clean fold. Now before I glue this shut, I'm going to ink it. So we're going to just ink that edge so that it's done for down the track, and I'll close that pocket up. And I'm not going to punch any notches or anything in it, it's not needed. So there we go, there's the basic base that I use for my tags. Now it's all neutral because I don't know how I'm going to decorate it. It's got a little pocket in it which will just let glue shut. I will cut the tops off when I need it, because I might want to make this into a journaling card or something. So I'll pop that under the mat and let that set, and we'll just quickly go through doing another one, because I want to show you, depending on how big your paper is, you might want to fold it in a different way. So there's not really any particular way of doing it other than doing it so that it works and is fairly neat. So this one gets folded a different way. So I'm going to once again put glue onto my piece of cartridge paper, and I'm making sure that I cover it thoroughly. And this one I'm going to put it in to the center, up to where the middle of the book would have been, but not going over that fold. I'll just burnish that. Now the next thing that I do is I fold this one over, and then I put my ruler onto it, and I put it up and just check close to where that base is that I'm using, and I tear some off, and you can see that it doesn't go over the edge of it. There's a little bit of a line there of where it is. So now I'm going to glue that one down. So let's put some glue on that, and I'll just glue that down. So this will be my front, and this will be my back. So now what I want to do is I want to fold over this edge to give the pocket a little bit of an edge. And I'm just going to put some glue onto the edge of that fold and fold it down so it's got a decent edge on it, and then fold that over, and then I'll ink that edge. So you can see that once you get started on them, they, and you've got a few pages pulled out of different books, because I use a variety of books. I use old maps, and I use invoices, or I use music paper, or I use coordinates out of atlases, lots of text, dictionary, a variety. And you can see that I'm just putting a little bit of art glitter glue on the ends, and then I'll close that over and create the pocket, and just trim that down if it's a bit off, which it is, and pop that under my mat. So that's the back and that's the front. So let's put that under there. So I'm hoping that that's been helpful to you so that you can mass produce some. I'm going to do a mass make now of creating a whole stack of those. I'm sure you don't need to watch me do all of them. So I will do some, and then I'll come back and I'll show you all the ones that I've made. I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, I'm back, and I've made quite a few. I've made 18 here, and I've got 3 that I have finished, and I've got 1 to make on camera with you now. But let's have a little look at what we have. So as I mentioned, I like using coordinates. So I've got 3 that I've made with the coordinates out of the back of the atlas. And these 3 have pockets in them, as you can see. Got pockets, little pockets or tuck spots. And I have 1 that has no pocket. So there's 4 of those. Now, I love using the illustrated dictionary. I have 5 that all have pockets. So this one is about space travel. So it's got some shuttles, or, like the top of the rocket, and then it's got on the back the rocket, and I purposely folded it so that in a way that rocket would be on the back, and it's super cool. This is crying out to be made into some sort of retro style tag or journaling card, so I like that one. This one has sailboats on it. This one here has autographs, all different signatures on it actually, and there's some interesting ones on here. Queen Victoria, David Livingstone, Florence Nightingale. It's got their signatures on it. And then on the back, it actually has a skeleton. Because it's an illustrated dictionary, it's got some interesting things in it. So this will be great for a Halloween tag. This has just got some old church spires in it. And then on the back, a spinning wheel. And this is just plain book page. Okay, so a bit of a variety. And as I said, I don't cut the tops on the tags until I decide that that's what I want to make out of it. This has the Criterion Hotel in Rockhampton, and it was built in 1891. And my husband and I have been there, and we had afternoon tea, Devonshire tea, there when we were visiting Rockhampton. And then on the back, it has just a lovely old illustration of a house. And you can see that this one has some of that washi tape on it because the fold over wasn't big enough. This one, once again, same thing. It has washi tape on the back, and I've got a strawberry illustration and a violet illustration. So they'll be good. They're all the 3.5 inch by 7 inch ones. And then you can see out of the 3 by 6, I have some music paper. I have a couple of those Midsummer Night's Dream, and then I have a couple of florals. And this one's got butterflies on it, and this one just has some, this has got music information on it. So there you go. I've got a good selection that I can now put into my stash, and a great resource for me to pull out some tags, and they didn't take that long to make once I got into the flow of it. So you're probably thinking, well, that's great, Annie, but let's have a look at what you're going to do. Okay, so let's have a little look at how to decorate it. So I've got one here that I've made, and it's out of Midsummer Night's Dream, and it's got some black circular washi on it that's postal marks and some numbers. Let's load it up with what I tend to do. So how I start is I usually, like I said, I usually have this as a cream kind of base or an ivory base. And then I tend to pick out two other pieces of paper that are slightly different in value. So this one is a little bit darker, and then this one's darker again. And, you know, I might have, you know, a band down the bottom and then another piece at the top or whatever. You don't have to put them all in a particular way. But I tend to have different values of neutrals with some black text on it or some dark text to add that depth to it. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to have variation, like I said, and a variation of content. So it having a different story to it. It's not all the same thing. It's got different style of font, or it's got, you know, this might be music paper, or it might be coordinates or something like that. So mixing it up, not just in value, but also in content. So I like to do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this strip down the side here, and I'm going to put this bit on the top, and I'm going to lay it so it's breaking up the tag into 3, because our eye does tend to like sets of 3. So let's glue that on. Now you can see that this was some really old music paper that has aged beautifully. Depending on whether I'm doing a quick make or a, you know, slow make. If I'm doing a quick make, I don't overthink it too much. I just glue something down and find something and glue it down. And I just try and get the proportions pretty right. Make sure that it's straight and cut off the excess. Now, with these tags that I'm doing at the moment, I've decided that I'm just using 3 colours. So I'm kind of working in sets of 3. I'm using 3 different pieces of backing paper, and I'm only using 3 different colours. So I'm using neutrals, so creams, browns, beiges, anything in the neutral palette is 1. Then I'm using black to give that higher value. And then the third colour I'm using is gold. So I'm putting into it a metallic, and that's all I'm doing for these tags that I'm doing for this project at the moment. For the bases, I'll probably end up using them and doing lots of different things. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little bit of gesso onto this so that it pulls back the text into the background just a little bit. So I'm just going to pull out my gesso. I'm just going to scrape a bit of gesso onto it. And I like to have some blobs in different places. So that just puts some of that content into the background. I'm going to dry that off. Okay, that's nice and dry, and I'm happy with that. I have pulled out a stamp, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of heat embossing, and I've pulled out a Tim Holtz. It's a stamp and stencil combo pack, and the number is THMM123, and I've pulled out this filigree pattern that I'm going to stamp and do some gold heat embossing. And I'm going to give the surface a really good tap with the anti-static powder, and I'm using my Versamark, and I'm just going to put a few blobs around. Okay, let's see how that goes with the gold embossing powder. Hopefully enough stuck to it. And I'll heat set that now. Okay, I'm just feeling it to make sure that it's all set, and I do want to just soften the edges of some of that, because some of it looks like it's got too much of a line on it. So I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of gesso just on the edges to blend it in to the background a little bit, and I quite like the look of the gesso blending into the edge of the heat embossing, but it just takes that edge away from it. Yes, I'm happier with that now. See how it rests into the background a little bit better? Okay, I just need for that to dry, and I'll get out my stamp that I'm going to do with a flower on it. Okay, so I've pulled out a stamp to stamp a flower onto it, and I've pulled out the dandelion from All & Create, and it's number 562, and I'm going to use my stamping tool because this surface is a bit uneven, but you see how it's got different variations in the background because we've put on those different coloured papers. Now, a few weeks ago, in one of my videos, I was talking about stamping and how I love stamping, and a couple of you commented that not many people stamp anymore. And I said to you, if you'd like me to do some stamping projects, to let me know. And some of you did. You said, yes, Annie, do some more stamping projects. So here we are. I've stamped onto here and then done some heat embossing. And I'm going to use my stamping tool now to stamp on a black flower, because remember, we're just keeping a really neutral palette with gold and black. So I am going to stamp our dandelion on there. So let's put our tag in the right way round. I've done that before, put it in the wrong way. Now this is a stamping tool from Stampin' Up. I've had it for many years, and I don't use it very often, to be honest. I tend to just go by the seat of my pants and think, well, it's a stamp, let's hope for the best. But in this situation where I need it to be the focal point on the item and for it to look good, I use my stamping tool. So all I'm doing here is I've put my tag base in and I've held it down with some magnets. I've positioned where I want to stamp my dandelion, and now I'll close the door and it will pick that stamp up, but it'll keep the tag in place. I'm going to use VersaFine, and I'm going to load up the dandelion stamp, and I'm going to stand up and give it a bit of pressure. Now that's pretty good, but I'm going to give it another pass. There we go. It looks pretty good. Now I'm going to have to let that dry, and as most of you would know, VersaFine takes a little bit of time to dry. Okay, so while it's drying, I am going to do a few things. I'm going to cut the tops on my tag, and I've got a punch that I use to do that sometimes. It's called the Very Best Trio Punch from Stampin' Up, but it's retired. So all of the things that I use from Stampin' Up are retired. Now I have some more stamps out of that same stamp set, out of the Dandelion. I'm just going to use the text that talks about dandelions. I'm just going to stamp a few words around. And I think I'm going to pull out a label and stamp the word dandelion on it. And I've got some labels here from Margaret at Seven Plaza. And I think these ones are from her Mass Mag March last year, actually. Maybe. Oh, I'm not 100% to be honest. Well, let's use that one. That one's nice. And it just says dandelion. I've only got one go at this because it's my last one. Oh, that's good. And I'm thinking I'm going to put a little bit of gold watercolour on it. So let's get that out. Yes, I'm liking that, but it does need a bit of gold on it. So let's spritz my gold watercolour. Now this is Kuretake Starry Golds. And I love using these. So it is turning into a bit of a mixed media project, isn't it? I'm just going to drop some gold around the edge and give that a tiny spritz, not a lot because I don't want the paper to lift too much. Oh yes, that's good. And I'm just going to drop a little bit of gold onto the leaves. Let's dry that off. Okay, I've got that pretty much dry. It's still a little bit tacky in some places. But we're going to put our dandelion label on. And I'm thinking I'd like to put it about here, but I want to ground it. I don't want it just floating in space. So I'm going to put a little bit of washi. Now I've just got to decide whether I want gold or whether I want black. So let's tear a little bit of black and just have a look. Okay, and a bit of gold. Let's put it over the top. I think I've got enough gold, to be honest, on this one. No, I think I need the black. Just put a little bit of extra glue on that. All right, that's looking great, isn't it? I hope you like that. I'm liking it. I'm loving all the depth in it, actually. Now I need to punch a hole in it, so let's do that. Now I do have a few hole reinforcers made in black that I'm just going to glue on because we're keeping our colour scheme in neutrals, blacks and golds. So just a little bit of scrap cardstock and I've just punched out a few black circles. And I have a label, a stamped label out of that same labels from Margaret. And I'm pretty sure, like I said, they're out of the Mass Make March 2025 bumper pack of her digitals. And I stamped them with some of Tony's from Crafty by Tony. I stamped them with some of her stamps and just made a label for the back. So let's glue that on, just so the back has something on it. Now one other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to ink the edge before I put that seam binding on, because I love the look of vintage photo with those starry watercolor golds. And we'll threadle in our seam binding, and then I'll clear up, and then I'll be able to bring out the other 3 examples of what I made out of my book page pockets. So just a bit of twine Okay, I'm happy with that. That's turned out quite nice. It might benefit from a few white splatters, so I might do that and clear the decks and then bring all 4 of them back and show you. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so let's have a little look at what we've made. So today's project was to mass make a whole lot of book page tags with pockets, and that's what I did at the beginning of the video. So you can see that I've got a bit of a stockpile here that I'll be able to put into my stash and use over the coming months. And I had a bit of a play today at doing a few different tags. So this was the one that we did together. And you can see that I have stuck to a colour theme of neutrals, black and gold. And I've done it with all of them. And we did a dandelion together. And I have put 3 different background pieces of paper on and then put some gesso on, and then we did a little bit of heat embossing and then some stamping because some of you wanted to see some projects with stamping. So we did some stamping with the black VersaFine, and then we put a little bit of watercolor gold on, and I've finished it off with some labels, a bit of washi and some white splatter. And then on the back it has a pocket or something to tuck in there as well, and a label that I stamped on from Margaret's Labels and Tony's Stamps, and I'll have them linked below. Now you can see that I did one earlier today, and this one is very similar. Once again, 3 background papers. So I started with my book page background and then I just layered on 2 other variations in value in neutrals, but I changed up the content. So you can see I've got a book page here, then I've got coordinates here, and then I've got the top up here has an invoice on it. So different pieces of paper with different values of darkness or light and shade. And then I have stamped a stamp on it from All and Create, and it says here, there are no gardening mistakes, only experiments. And this says limited edition, and I've put some gold washi on that one. And then on the back I used the same label, and once again a bit of washi and a pocket. These 2 here are a little bit different. I did some stamping for the background, but I fussy cut out a bird. So you can see that this has book page in the background, and then it also has some mechanical text here, and then a piece of book page going up here, and I stamped on it some numbers off of a typewriter. I also stamped some text in the background and heat embossed it in gold. Then I have put on some washi, a label and a number and a little bit of washi there, and finished it off with some white splatters. And on the back it just has a piece of coordinates out of the atlas and a pocket in the music paper. The next one, once again, is a bird, and it's got music in the background. I like to put music with birds because they sound so beautiful when they sing. And this one you can clearly see the 3 different pieces of paper. So we have our music paper as our base. Then I have layered up a piece of a darker book page, old aged book page, and then a piece of printable actually with some darker tones on it that I kind of simulated as ground. Then I have stamped on a invoice down here of W. Batty and Sons. They were clockmakers. And then I've also stamped on in Versamark some leaves and put gold embossing powder on it and heat embossed that. Stamped a circle. And I've repeated the circle here. I've got a little bit of a circle here, and there was a circle up here. Not sure whether you can see it under the label. It says bird. It just says bird limited edition. And then on the back, it just has a little piece of paper out of a mechanical training book. So you can see putting belt on pulley. So different kind of content than the music for interest. So there we go. So there's my pile of book page tags, and here's my 4 examples of the tags that I've made. Let me zoom in case you want to take a screenshot, and you'll be able to see it a little bit better. There we go. I hope you enjoyed that video today. It was something a little bit different, a little bit of mixed media, which is always lovely. And I tried to do some stamping for some of you. Some of the stamps you will know. Most of them are from either All and Create or from Tim Holtz. There's a few other ones in there, but most of them are from those suppliers. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you stopping by again. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. That would be wonderful. And subscribe to the channel. So thank you so much for those of you that have been giving me some hypes. I really value them because I know that you only get a few hypes a week. So when I get them, I am so grateful. So it's very kind of you to do that. So hopefully this has inspired you to pull out some of your book pages and to mass make yourself some tags, or you could use them as journaling cards, whatever. So that's all from me today. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend making something fun and new. And I will see you again on Monday with another project. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye for now.